The Sine Institute of Policy and Politics is American University's incubator for policy innovation. We convene leaders in the academic, public, private, nonprofit, and journalism sectors to engage and promote common ground and nonpartisan solutions. In an evolving world, we seize the opportunity to work on the nation's most pressing challenges through collaboration by experts and top scholars in their field with students in research and scholarship. As part of that goal, the Sine Institute leverages American University's location in our nation's capital, the nexus of government and a growing international business center. We connect diverse perspectives from around the country and around the world with our world-class academics and research, experienced practitioners, and the most politically active student body in the U.S. We stand apart through our focus on the role of business and the nonprofit community in public policy, the rise of the importance of economic regions in the United States, and international policy issues. Our focus is to make an immediate impact at the intersection of policy and politics that leads to real and lasting change. Thank you for joining us as we convene, communicate, and collaborate. And now, Sine Institute 2023 Fellow Anna Deavere Smith.
Hi there, everybody. Let me say, first of all, that my goal here is to learn something about you and how you're thinking about goodwill, about the communities of goodwill in which you engage at the moment, and ways that you think goodwill around you and in your life is inhibited. And it seems to me that one of the ways that we can think about where there's a lack of goodwill in our country and the world is to do a micro dive, a deep dive into how we are with one another as human beings and what we think we might do to create environments where goodwill could thrive. Now, what do I mean by goodwill? What I mean by goodwill is, for one thing, one simple thing, is the benefit of the doubt. What does it take to give the people around you the benefit of the doubt? And what makes that impossible? So those are some of the things we're going to be talking about today. And then when we're together, I hope that you all will be able to come to my, that you all will be able to attend my in-person meeting at American University, where some of this will become more palpable. But let's build a box in which we can work in the first place. So the first thing I need to do, sadly, I can't see you in this this webinar environment. But the first thing I want to do is to actually hear you tell me what your name is and what you are studying and what your goals are. And I'm going to ask Ava to help me move around the group in this way.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Ava Gadden. I'm the administrative assistant for Sine. So what we would love for you to do is to put up the raise hand function, and I'll go through and unmute people individually to allow them to do their greeting and their introductions.
So I see we have 29 participants. Okay, we have Jocelyn Parker. So Jocelyn, tell me I have your name. Tell me what your goals are and what your core study is, or major. She's still muted.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
What'd you say? I missed the first part of that.
Oh, I said I'm studying international relations and history, and my goal is to eventually end up working for the State Department.
Okay. All right. We have a K. We have, oh, good. So names are popping up. So
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, who is this?
My name's Katie Nowicki. I'm a freshman poli-sci major, and I don't know exactly what I want to job-wise do, but I want to have like a positive impact on the world and the people who live in it.
Can you say a little bit more about what you see in your mind's eye when you say that?
I see either working for a nonprofit organization, maybe that specifically focuses on helping women, or working in government through like the government accountability offices, or a legislative committee on Congress.
Okay.
as a staffer for a elected official.
In your immediate era of your life, right? Not when you're 45, right?
Right.
Right. Okay. Who else we got?
Hi, my name is Alexia Osborne. I'm doing an interdisciplinary major here. It's called CLEG. It's Communications, Legal Institutions, Economics, and Government. And my goal in the future is to do immigration and or criminal law.
Great. Okay. Who else? We got lots of wonderful hands up. How about Mauricio?
Am I on?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. Hi, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for hosting us today. Mauricio Alexander Cherney. I'm a recent graduate student from the graduate program at IPCR, International Peace and Conflict Resolution. And my focus is on mitigating white supremacy and extremism in the United States and other regions in the country, particular groups that are working to have a hate-based feature to their ideology. And so my interest is also working in truth reconciliation in the United States, basing it on what other countries may have done in their post-conflicts, as we're obviously currently in a serious conflict in the United States when it comes to racism and xenophobia. So I'd like to work with building a network of groups that are working on TRC right now in the United States. Interest some are political entities and some are non-profits or small groups, and trying to change policy to give funding to those groups.
Cool. All right.
Hi, can you hear me?
Love all these names that are just popping right up. So Ava, I will count on you to call out names and just move us along, because this is terrific.
Absolutely. Let's have Andrew Taylor next.
Oh, great. Hi, Anna. This is Andrew
Hi.
Taylor. I'm on the faculty of the Arts Management Graduate Degree Program here at American University. So I'm really eager to talk with you and hear from you about how particularly nonprofit arts organizations can be more curious and more generous in the way they work with their artists and their audiences, which strikes me as a path to goodwill, as being curious and generous.
Well, one thing, let's put a little pin in, Andrew, is what you think about the current business model, which seems to be problematic in many places for the nonprofit arts, at least in the performing arts, I will say, or theater, where I know it. Many of us are questioning what the business model is. So maybe one of the things we can think about today, and when I am in person, is even how business models affect the goals that you might have, current business models.
Yeah, we could go on all day, but I think certainly current nonprofit arts are deeply entangled with wealth and power and whiteness. And so they are often they're often struggling because a lot of their governing boards are not open to risk, and a lot of their major donors don't like the risk. And so I'm eager to follow that path. I think you're right.
Okay, Ava, who we got next?
Amazing. Emily Warshaw.
Hi, it's nice to meet you. I'm getting an MA in special education, and my goal is to be an advocate for students with special needs, to fight for accurate representation through empathy and performance, conversation, and teaching.
Okay, great.
Kania Harris.
Hi, my name's Kanaya Harris. I'm studying justice and law and sociology with the hopes of going to law school to either study entertainment law or human rights law. I know they're two completely different things, but I'm super excited to be here today.
Great. All right, who's up next?
Daniel Punales.
Hi, hello. My name is Daniel Punales. I am a sophomore at American University studying. I'm a dual degree candidate, so I'm doing political science and environmental science. And I say one of my goals is probably finding the intersection between environmental science and policy. So gonna work somewhere in environmental law, preferably probably with the EPA right now. And considering everything that's going on right now, I feel they do need more help in that area. So expanding just like the outreach from like government to people is something that I've been passionate about, and I want to pursue that in my future career.
Cool.
Yibsira.
Hi, I'm Yipsara. I am a master's candidate for the comparative politics program in SPA. And when I think of my community, I think of like a huge, like multifaceted lens, I guess, just because I've grown up in multiple locations, but my home is always going to be Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. And whenever I think about like impact for them, I think a lot about like healing and just restorative practice. I currently work in equity and restorative justice right now, and it's something that I always think about is like providing a space of healing, especially because my country is being impacted heavily by just generational violence and ethnic division, and it's really sculpted who I am as a person, because I am from multiple ethnic groups from my home country. So it's really made me think about how generationally we can heal and provide for a better future.
Great. Okay.
Aiden Levinson.
Hi, my name is Aiden. I'm a senior at American University studying data sciences for political science. I'm headed to law school in the fall, and I hope to practice law after that, but probably focus on political compliance and tech law.
Okay.
Debbie Mack.
Hi, Anna. I'm Debbie Mack, and I am a retired attorney, novelist, and screenwriter. I also have a podcast. I'm here because I would like to learn more about how to build community with the goal of becoming eventually a producer.
Okay.
And also I'm very concerned with creators supporting creators, and all of us coming together to support each other and do well that way, as opposed to ways that are less sustainable.
Okay. Meaning not doing what the above. Hold on 1 second, folks. I am on the road. I just have to fix one technical thing.
From here on out, I'm just going to be calling on people who don't have their hand raised. If you are not in a space where you're able to introduce yourself, go ahead and shoot me a message. Thank you.
I am back, and what I just did reminds me of one of the first times I was ever on a major radio station, and the host asked me a question and left the room, and me and myself and the person who was from the PR department of the theater I was with, we were just horrified if he was going to get back by the time I finished answering the question. So Ava, who you're just going to call on names now, you said?
Yes. Edwin Santos.
Hello, my name is Edwin Santos. I am a undergrad, but also in the combined master's bachelor's program. My undergrad is in legal studies and my master's is in public administration. After that, I hope to go to law school to practice immigration law, and then down the road get involved in like immigration policy. I'm very big on like immigration reform, and yeah.
Great. All right.
Emily Randolph. We'll move on for now. Francesca Schlesinger.
Hi, Anna. I am near retirement. I work in public media at WAMU. I am interested in your tips on communication. I've been fascinated with your career and what you've done on the screen, in theater, and so on, and just how do you morph all your talents and skills and the broad depth of your career? How how have you done that in a way that has been so powerful? What do you recommend for people just starting out, and for someone like me who's nearing the end of life?
Oh, okay. By the end of life, what do you mean, Francesca?
Well, approaching retirement, you know, leaving the job force, but still staying relevant. I'd like to write. And I just wonder what tips you would have for somebody who feels I have a lot to say, but won't have the platform of a workforce to do it.
Well, one thing is, and Ava, what you can tell us the day of the career panel. I think that will be done more in depth there. What's the date of that, Ava? Do you know?
I do, yes. I will find it while we have our next introduction and then give it to everyone.
Okay, cool.
Kathy Porcella. Lisa McDowell.
I feel like I met Lisa McDowell last time. That might just be a very famous name.
Ryan Curtis.
Hello, I'm a freshman here at SIS and studying international studies, but specifically focusing in Africa policy. And yeah, I'm just hoping with my life to work for some policy advisory, as I think the United States policy towards Africa has historically been very problematic, and it needs to be reformed. So I'm hoping to bring that in a better direction.
Okay.
Sebastian Mahal.
Hi there. Yeah, my name is Sebastian. I'm a second year undergraduate at American University, and I'm studying political science and philosophy. And, you know, I'm not sure exactly where I'm gonna go after I finish undergraduate, but I think that maybe this is even something that you could agree with, that just what you study and where you're at when you're a teenager shouldn't really constrict you to what you have to do throughout your entire life. And I want to work in as many mediums as I can get my hands on. But yeah, I'll see where that takes me.
Okay.
Tyler Eliades.
Hi, yes, I'm Tyler. I'm a graduating senior studying political science. And I just want to work in the political field, whether it's as a political activist, political advisor, and just like my previous colleague said, make good change and good lasting change.
All right.
Ryan Curtis.
I just previously introduced myself, so.
Oh, thank you so much. Then I think that we have looped around and we're finished.
Okay, this is really terrific. And again, I really hope that you guys can come to you individuals, excuse me, right there, the assumptions, right? The assumptions of what people are. Here I am considering myself all about justice and the equality in all ways. And just in my own vocabulary there, I privileged a group of people. So all of us as individuals, you know, this is very inspiring to me to hear how many of you are dedicated to making a difference in this world, a positive difference in this world. I want to start by talking about, if you can give me examples and just, you know, let's pop these off quickly. Don't think too hard. Give me an example of bad intentions. Just anything. It could be anything from boxing to domestic life to colonialism, to things going on, Sarah, in Ethiopia. Give me an example of some bad intentions that you've witnessed in your life in a small way or a big way. Just don't think too much. Bad intentions.
We have a couple raised hands. I'm going to start with one from the chat. Lexi Osborne said, helping just to look good. And then we have bullying from Debbie Mack. And then if in order, I'll take Emily, and then Yubsera.
Emily?
All right, we'll go to Yubsera for now.
I would say just like trying to instill your beliefs onto others, trying to enforce your values on others.
What are let's think even more simply and more specifically. Can somebody give me an example of something that happened when they were quite young as a child that they would say is an example of bad intentions? When do you think you first became aware of bad intentions? Any incident that you feel is evidence of bad intentions? I see Katie has her hand up. Maybe Ava, you could unmute her so I can actually hear her voice.
Yeah, I think an example of bad intentions from childhood is like when you're a kid, and I remember like just being on the playground and you get hit and tag, and someone like calls you a name or says that you cheated or something. Like they know you didn't, but like their intention is to make you look bad so they can stay in the game.
Okay, all right. Lexi, how about you?
I would say like peer pressure, when someone knows that they want to do something bad and then they include you into it and try and make you feel like you should join in that bad action.
Do any of our philosophers in the group have any ideas about what it is in the human spirit that could cause bad intentions to come forward? Why is that a part of us? Sarah?
I would say like as humans, we're not as trauma informed as we think we are. We'll always convince ourselves that like we understand our own trauma, we understand other people's like feelings, and if like someone expresses to you that they felt neglect in one way, immediately the first thing you're going to think of is like, oh, I face neglect in my own way too, and like you want to respond and you want to be helpful, but we're not as trauma informed. We don't know how to ask the right questions. We don't know how to ask someone, are you okay, without like causing additional harm, because you're not listening to you're not listening to understand, you're just listening to respond.
Well, in a way, what I heard in the middle of what you said is something that I think is very important for us to consider, is the way the ability to connect is inhibited by us having to first experience ourselves further before we can really absorb what someone else is bringing. Now, is that bad intentions, I wonder, or is that some lack of development in a way? But what are some of the bad, now this is easy for all of you in political science, to just pop it off. What are some of the bad intentions that are obvious in the world right now, internationally, or in this country? I know we have someone working with white supremacy. What are some of the bad intentions that are right in front of us in the world around us? Tyler.
I guess we could say just rising hate. Like you said, we have someone working in white supremacy. There's rising anti-Semitism, rising anti-Asian, especially during the age of COVID. So just the rise of hate, not just domestically, but internationally.
And Mauricio, because this is part of your area. Mauricio's hand is up. I think. Yeah, go ahead. You're muted.
There we go. Can you hear me? Yeah, it could be a mixture of bad intention and also, ignorance, and also desire to hold on to power. But I think, an overwhelming intention here seems to be to be able to maintain, these supremacist or old school patriarchal values, simply just to hold on to an identity that, is a construct that many people don't believe in or follow anymore. So it's this desire to, as someone else had said, I think, to promote an idea, a long-standing controversial idea of how the world should be, based on old, maybe sometimes traditional means, but it's really just a greedy, I think, attempt at power, right? To hold on to power. And this is not something that's new. So I think it's great that we're talking about this, because this is a value that can be instilled in anyone if not given a chance to understand equity and diversity in the world. And I see the intention is using also religion in that way. So there's all these negative intentions of taking important, valuable aspects of humanity and turning them into, as someone else mentioned, hate and greed.
Katie or Lexi, I see your hands are up.
Another example that comes to mind is some of the framing that we see in media. And just instead of necessarily looking at people or communities' humanity, it's more things that are for profit and what sells. And so being guided by money instead of thinking of who's at the end of what is happening.
I want to give you an example of a bad intention that I just found out about that I thought was extraordinary. I'm from Maryland. I bet you a couple of you are from Maryland as well. And I went and I was doing some research in the Maryland State Archives. And I happened upon this book called The Negro Docket. And in that docket were trials where people had gone to court to try to get their, Black people had gone to court to try to get their children out of apprenticeships. Now, what were these apprenticeships? Maryland is a funny state that in the one hand was in the Union, but on the other hand had slavery. So it really didn't have emancipation at the same time as the rest of the South. So they still had slaves even after the Emancipation Proclamation. We always think about it as being Galveston, Texas, but oh no, my state still had slaves, but they knew that this was going to end. So what they did is pulled out these old dusty law books with apprenticeship laws, which allowed them to take Black children into apprenticeships, take them from their parents and have them be apprentices from the time they were, say, 4 until the girls were 18 or the men were 21. And so here were these individuals, Black individuals, some of whom probably couldn't read or write. And so we can imagine what the scenes were like of trying to get letters written to the court to try to get their children back to them. And I have to say, you know, I've been around a long time. I know a lot about bad intentions. I trained with the former heavyweight boxing coach, was my trainer for a while, who would, you know, when we were sparring, would keep saying, sis, come on now, come on, bring me some bad intentions. I know about the bad intentions inside of myself, but I could not believe, I don't think I'm naive is what I'm saying, but I could not believe that the people in my state would come up with something like that in order to really have a kind of de facto slavery continue, at least for children. And so I think it is the case. We open up any newspaper any day, we're going to see evidence of bad intentions. And almost every single one of you have told me about something that you're doing, which is involved with the complexity of human beings on a big scale. And many of you have a wish to make things better. Let's talk now about good intentions and try to keep it, you know, with me, you know, with Anna Deavere Smith, you don't have to be, you can be simpler. You can be simpler. You can, because, you know, my work is about, it's human to human, because it's about acting, right? Where I'm becoming other humans, or I'm a playwright and I'm constructing imaginary engagements with humans. So think very simply, even from your own life, a story of good intentions. So let me just ask for 3 stories of good intentions.
I also, yeah, absolutely. I just want to pop in real fast and say that, Anna, you're welcome to call on anybody who has their hand raised. Okay. Everyone now has the capacity to unmute themselves, so they can just go ahead.
That's right. That eases us up. So good intentions. Give me some Very simple, something that happened last week. Does anybody have anything that happened last week that they would say is evidence of good intentions in the world? Lexi.
If in general, I think like the little things when you see someone down the street and you smile, or if just giving someone a compliment, if you see someone struggling, try to help them in any way that you possibly can.
Okay, give me a specific, anybody of that happened yesterday in your life that was evidence of good intentions. Katie.
I was with my friend in one of like the dining places on campus, and he like walked up to someone and said, like, I really like your outfit. You look really good in it today. And like, it just made her really happy.
Now, would that still be a good intention if the next thing that person did was say, hey, lend me a nickel?
No.
No, there's a very famous literary scholar who I talked to at Princeton years ago, who asked the question, if a man asks you out for dinner, is that a gift or a bribe? If a man asks, Natalie Zinman Harris is her name. If a man asks you out for dinner, is that a gift or a bribe? Sarah, good intentions.
Like you said yesterday, I used to be a teacher at an elementary school, and the students were doing their yearly science project, and they wanted to do a science fair, so they just sent a Google link to everyone, and we got to see like their projects, and it was just nice to be able to like share that moment and hear about like their growth through the science program and stuff. And it was just nice that like they intentionally like, you know, got up there. These are like fifth graders, you know, so for them to like set this whole thing up, it was really nice and just sweet, and I was glad I got to at least watch it from afar.
Cool. Either Lexi or Katie, either one. I want to ask Emily, if you don't mind, Emily. Now, you're interested in special ed. Can you think of anything? What is your personal narrative? Is there something in your own life that is leading you to care about the kids who need different kinds of attention, adjustments to their curricula, perhaps different services than other kids? What is it in you that has led you to want to be involved in that part of the educational profession?
I've always been personally involved with people that are different and think differently. And I think that there are a lot of misconceptions around people that think differently. There's a lot we just don't know about the brain in general. And personally, I mean, I've always wanted to be a teacher, and in some way, in some capacity. And I love working with people and figuring out what is the thing that's going to make you and help you learn, because learning is an incredible thing, which sounds really cheesy, but I love it. So
if you were going to be giving a speech to raise money, let's say, for a brand new and innovative school that was particularly for kids with special needs, and you had a high price consultant, communications consultant, they would say most likely that you needed to begin your speech with a story, a specific story from your life. Can you think of anything that you would begin your speech with? Of what specific story you would start with?
I would talk about struggles in the classroom. I would say, I mean, there's a lot I could say. There's one where one of my friends, people would always speak to me instead of her when we were together because she's Down syndrome. And in the classroom, the same biases happened with teachers too. Again, because there's not enough education around it. And people just assume that just because there's something different in your brain means that you're a whole other species, or that you should be treated as less than other people. So
let me just mention that, you don't have to do this, but if you wanted to, let's say you could even give that your friend either a real name or a fake name. The important thing would be to make an audience aware very specifically, give them an image or a description or that person's name or an event that could lead off your speech. Now, where am I getting to with this? Where I'm getting is one of the things that people with good intentions try to do to make, to bring others along with good intentions is to evoke something in those people who are listening, their own inner desire for good intentions, right? So if you were to tell that story about your friend, someone else might think of a story of walking down the street with someone of a different race or someone with a different appearance or an older person, and they want to evoke from us. We could say sympathy, but I think it's more than that. I think it's trying to prick in us, in ourselves, a memory or an inclination that we have about goodness, about the possibility of being good. And of course, the same works with something that is about being bad. The same thing is true of bad intentions. So when we think about how to create a community of goodwill, I think one of the first things we would have to do is to deal with the reality of good intentions and bad intentions. So let's say that, and I have a feeling that given the types of things that you all have said to me today, that many of you are on the path to leadership, right? So think with me now, as let's go 7 years from me now, and you have a team. You have a team of people, whether it's in an office in the State Department, or whether it's a creative activity that you're trying to manifest, or a sports team, or a charity, or a nonprofit organization. You have a team of 6 people who don't know each other. Think with me about some of the things that you might do, starting with the first day, to evoke people's good intentions as an investment in creating an environment of goodwill. Just think out loud.
Well, I think anything that shares something human and personal and unique, so giving them an opportunity to say something we wouldn't guess about you, sort of things like that, that bring in a human perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also opening up the discussion to non-work related stuff like interests and hobbies outside of whatever like professional environment you're in, to create connection more so in relation to interests.
Do you think that there's something about the work environment itself that inhibits good intentions?
I think it's not necessarily that it inhibits good intentions, but when you're so focused on like accomplishing the goal, you might forget that your decisions are affecting real life people who you're working with, and depending on what your job is, what you're affecting. So just creating human connections that don't rely on the workplace can help keep you grounded in the fact that your job is to help people and not to get like the stocks up or like achieve some other like fiscal policy goal.
Do you think that competition is a part of who we are and it's inevitable? And do you think that competition is aligned with bad intentions, or do you think competitions and striving could be aligned with good intentions?
I think that it's a really fine line. Like I have a friend who we like compete in class, but it's a competition where we like bounce ideas off of each other and use each other to further our own understanding. So I think competition that seeks to grow can be healthy and overall helpful, but when you're competing just to prove that you're better than someone else, then you're going into bad intentions, because your goal isn't help, it's to prove that you know more and that you are like more worthy of whatever it is you are doing, which I think is inherently like not a good route to go down.
Well, I mean, I'm doing some research right now on tennis stars. And they always talk about, you look at a record of a tennis star, of who they beat, just that word beat, right? So in sportsmanship, for example, it's assumed that some person is going to dominate, right? So that's also a part of who we are. Is it a part of who we are? I think it is, right? That we have a part of who we are that is about dominating. Maurizio.
Yeah, I was going to go out on a limb and suggest something creative like, a potluck lunch or dinner. I feel like good intention is feeding people or sharing, as some other people had said, sharing something personal. I think I would try to do something around food and drink. I also think it can be, some people will find that kind of fun to learn about someone else's food interests. And then as competition, just to make a note on that, I think, sure, I think a lot of people compete. We have that in ourselves, right? The need to maybe dominate or compete. But I think, as some people were saying, it depends on the intention. At the end of the day, you can compete with yourself by competing against someone else, right? I do feel like that in sports for sure. And so then that brings up an air of respect for each other, even though you are competing against someone. You're competing against them because you want to be better for yourself, not necessarily because you want to beat someone or destroy someone's record. Again, I think intention has a lot to do with it, and if people can come with the same intentions, we can still be competitive and want to dominate. But in the end, it's to improve each other, help each other improve.
Or maybe we could say to improve the game overall, give them benefit of the doubt there. Debbie, what about you? Debbie Mack.
People have been saying what she said, what he said, that sort of thing. Also, I wanted to add that you can compete without necessarily being mean. There can be friendly competition. I mean, I'm in several writers groups, screenwriting groups and prose writing groups. And we, of course, have a certain amount of competition among us to do well. I mean, it's a matter of showing up and doing your best, rather than looking at it as, oh gee, they're so much better than me, or I'm so much worse than them, or something like that. It's just, we make each other better by combining our efforts. And I've seen this by collaborating on a screenplay with somebody. It really helped improve my writing. And so I don't think of it in terms of, gosh, I have to be #1 on Amazon or anything like that. I just want to do a good job. And I think that by supporting each other, we can kind of raise the rising tide lifts all boats sort of thing. It's like we can all support each other and do well at what we do by sharing and collaborating.
Andrew.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking the way you're describing whether or not business environments lead you to good or bad, it feels like there are many intentions. They're complex and entangled and sometimes competing. So if a business environment incentivizes you to maximize revenue, or you'll get a promotion if you achieve the greatest financial outcome, that's an incentive, that's an intention that may or may not align with being a human that's curious and generous to those around you. So I think sometimes it's overlapping intentions that are in conflict with each other. And quite often, as you said earlier, the business model sets up a game that will lead its players to behave a certain way, either to favor or to ignore the good intentions that would lead to generous conduct.
I think it's absolutely right. And the fact is that most of us gathered here today are people who have a competitive spirit, even if that's competitive to make the world a better place and, to outrun the people with bad intentions. And so it's not that we shouldn't be competitive or that we shouldn't have the intention to excel. But I think the way Andrew described it leads me to believe that it calls for a certain kind of self-reflection and self-discipline so that we don't lose track of ourselves when we're in the middle of that that race. Now, I want to use the last bit of time that we have together to talk about very specifically one of the reasons why I'm going around to environments like yours to talk about goodwill. And it's because, and I really need you all to sort of be candid with me now, and me particularly wanting to hear from those of you who are making the future world. I find that as a teacher, which as I'm still teaching, I'm a professor at NYU. I teach on Sundays a straight 5 or 6 hours. As an artist in particular, I find that we can get really tripped up right now, and people blame it on social media, that if we say the wrong thing, or if we don't think about, for example, representation of groups in the right way, we could be quote unquote canceled, or I'd say honesty and candid conversation shuts down. And you really can't have any group, you can't have any collaboration where there's not openness and honesty. So for example, I'm working on an opera right now at the Chicago Lyric Opera. Happens to be about gun violence among kids in Chicago. And it's featuring a group started by Arnie Duncan, the former Secretary of Education under Obama, who, after he left the White House, wanted to do something about gang violence in Chicago because of something in his personal life, a narrative in his personal life of a dear friend of his when he played basketball who was involved in gun violence. And so, again, these narratives, you heard me working a little bit with Emily on a narrative, these personal narratives and building them with concrete stories are a very important part of how you galvanize people around you. And so he's started a group called Chicago Cred, believing that, to, try to make a dent in gun violence among kids, well, let's work with the shooters. So he's working with kids, many of whom young people who have been incarcerated and out for killing somebody. And I did a variety of interviews, and I'm working with a Haitian American composer named Daniel Romaine and a director named Yuval Sharon. And I have to tell you that there are times that we absolutely, especially in the beginning, did not agree at all. And a lot of our disagreement was about what could be represented, what couldn't be represented. We had bitter arguments. And yet it's one of the best collaborations I've ever had in my life, because we have good intentions, because we have goodwill, even though we don't agree. And so I'm particularly concerned about environments with young people, as many of you are, where there's a fear of saying the wrong thing. Now, maybe that doesn't exist at American University. It certainly does at NYU. And I wonder if any of you are willing to tell me about how you work with that, how you negotiate the possibility that you could say something that might or produce something that might appear to be disrespectful of another group, and then what happens. So I just want to open that up, because this is something that for me is very serious in terms of environments where creativity has to flow, is how do we in this moment find a space of goodwill where we can give people the benefit of the doubt. Katie.
I think for me, I was having a conversation with a friend that was of a more sensitive topic recently, and it was a lot about trust and having an environment where you can share something that might potentially be controversial in a space where it will be where that person will be able to fully look at it and understand where you're coming from and be able to say hey, yeah, I think this is really good, but maybe adjust your thinking here, and just come at it from a point of it complete openness, and rather than having any preconceived notions or being unwilling to let you talk through what you are thinking. So I think it's, for the baseline in my experiences, has been trust and a willing to take a risk with what you're saying.
Well, help me understand what trust is. I'm gonna open that up to everybody. Like, what is trust? You can use a story. I want to encourage storytelling. What are evidences that what makes you feel trustworthy? Let's put it that way. When do you feel trustworthy? We all want to be able to trust someone else or something. But what do you feel you are doing right now in your life to appear or to really be trustworthy? Lexi.
I would say checking in with myself, of like coming into a space of being open-minded and thinking that whoever I'm talking to is just, they're coming from their perspective, and respecting that and coming into it being more inquisitive than judgmental. And I think when more people are able to just be open to what other people think, it's not about having to agree with them, but just hear them out. I think that's when I'm the most trustworthy and when I feel like I can trust in others.
Anybody else? Melody.
Yes, Anna Deavere, so wonderful to see you. And I'm not going to take a lot of time to tell you how wonderful you are, but I am probably your oldest member on this panel today, and I'm honored to be here. I bring perhaps a perspective that might help our young people in that I have learned to trust myself over years. And one of the things that I think we tend to forget or maybe don't realize when we're younger people is that we are very important people. We must learn to trust ourselves at a young age. It's not easy to do because we have a lot of things that put doubt in our mind about our capability and who we are and how we communicate with the rest of the world. But in these days, having strong thoughts and being able to express them is so important. And I believe that our future rests with these wonderful young people that are on this call today. And I just want to give them the confidence to believe in themselves and to trust themselves, because you will learn, of course, beyond where you are today, but don't think you are inadequate or unimportant at this age, because you are extremely important and you are the future.
Well, thank you, Melody. And are you on the faculty at American University, or?
No, I'm just a person who has been taking part in these conversations, and I just enjoy talking and listening to young people, because during COVID, I felt somewhat isolated, as we all did. And these wonderful Zoom meetings were an opportunity to literally bring the world to me. And I thoroughly enjoyed them and want to continue as long as I can.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm gonna sort of bring us towards a close with Mauricio. I hope you won't mind me asking us all to think about this idea that you put on the table of truth and reconciliation in the United States. And I had the opportunity to be in Rwanda when their Gacaca trials began. Lucky for me, Samantha Power really hooked me up in Rwanda, and I got to meet all kinds of people, including the president. And this was very dramatic, where people, Hutus, who had been those who committed genocide against the Tutsis, Hutus who were imprisoned had to come to their community, usually small groups, and say what they did and ask for forgiveness. And if the community felt that they told the truth, then they could come out of prison. And, you know, I was in one of those where, you know, people were yelling in the back, he's lying, he's lying. I also visited the prisons and talked to some Hutus and talked to Tutsis who had lost family members, and among them a woman who was trying to decide whether to meet with a Hutu who had killed people in her family and to give him forgiveness. Well, one of the things that was so interesting to me was how the president had been able to get everybody, been able to get many people in the country to go along with this whole idea of truth and reconciliation. You know, basically the prisons, you know, couldn't keep holding these folks, and they weren't all going to be able to go to The Hague. Now, Samantha felt that one of the reasons everybody went along with it was that it was a country in which people tended to be obedient. And the very thing that caused Hutus to come out and kill people when told is a thing that also evoked from people willingness to go along with the program. So I'm wondering what in America, Mauricio, needs to be reconciled, and what truth needs to be told, because I think that that is something that is probably relevant to all of us on this Zoom. And we don't have to answer it all today, but what is the truth in America that needs to be told, and what needs to be reconciled?
Thank you for that question. Obviously, yes, I don't have the one answer. I think the first thing we always, at least we've been studying here at American University, is the move towards, collective memorization, memorialization, and understanding of history, right? That's a very hard thing to do in this very polarized environment, obviously. But we have to start to take steps, sort of what you're bringing up here, which is allowing some space for people to discuss their ideas and their feelings. Again, I'm not necessarily saying we're all going to be hanging out with white supremacists and that's going to work out. But there's definitely a need for understanding perspectives, I think, on so many different levels and different sides. And that's part of the truth telling, right? It's victims and those that are oppressed, whatever communities may be, in discussing their stories. And you're talking about storytelling. I think that plays a huge role in America, and something that we continue to evade sometimes in major ways. And looking to other countries, yes, I don't think, like Rwanda, this is not a country where perhaps many people would be obedient to want to even talk or focus on reconciliation. But there is one mental piece, I think, that works for us, and most of us, I think, want to see a country where we can all feel proud of who we are and what we contributed to in our history and community. But part of that is the truth telling, right? We know very well that there's a lot of inaccurate truths. In fact, I went to some great schools in undergrad and even private school, and there were so many truths that I feel like I actually wasn't told. I was told half truths. So education is an important part. But yeah, the collective memorialization, that doesn't happen until you really begin to bring groups together. And it's obviously not just talking, it's policy. It's trying to make sure that whatever histories were erased or not mentioned, that contributes to supremacy, I think, a great deal. So this is not there's not a one-shot answer, right, at all. There's prevention, there's,
well, I mean, and we see actively in Florida, what DeSantis is doing to question, I would
Absolutely.
say, is it the truth? Or some of the things that are really not just 1619, not just intersectionality, anything like that, but really a move since the 60s to question whether the story of America could be held by one group, and in large part white men with resources. But Corliss, what's the truth and what needs to be reconciled?
Hi, I just wanted to first and foremost say thank you so much for this enriching conversation. I think that the biggest thing is that, one, I think we can all agree that the truth starts with education, but more so than that, there has to be kind of a meeting of minds as to what the truth is. And as you were just mentioning, there's a division as to what the truth is currently. So that's already an issue as to what is the truth? Whose truth are we kind of perpetuating, and whose truth is it that we kind of all embrace? But then more so in terms of reconciliation, and I think that you also had mentioned the word forgiveness. I think that there's a difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. Because for me to forgive somebody, they don't have to come to me. I can choose on my own to forgive somebody for the harm that they caused me. But reconciliation requires a meeting of the minds for somebody who caused harm and somebody who suffered harm to come together, and the person who caused the harm, or the entity or the individual, the system that caused the harm, to be able to recognize the harm caused and to implement a system of redress for that harm, so that we can reconcile. That's, to me, what reconciliation is. And so particularly in the American context, I think that reconciliation is difficult where we don't have that kind of meeting of minds of somebody acknowledging a wrong and somebody being able to accept and, accept that acknowledgement and then have that reconciliation. And so I think that for me, particularly in the American context, that's where the truth and reconciliation concept gets a little bit lost, because whose truth are we really looking for? And how do we reconcile when, there's players who may not acknowledge the hurt that they've suffered, and there's players that may not acknowledge the hurt that they've caused?
Well, and let me just say that the thing about the truth and what I've seen, what I see every day, like the example I gave you about the Maryland State Archives, is that, as Emily said, in one of the things that interests her in special ed is that there's stuff we don't know about the brain right now. So one of the things, it seems to me, and we're in education, so we get to think this way, is that we have to also assume that there's something unknown that's going to change the story. And are we going to be willing to go along with that aspect, some new thing? Something is going to be revealed, right? Something new is going to be revealed. And are we willing to move ahead, or do we just stop? Do we stop at a certain point? Now, Lexi, I'm going to give you the last word before I wrap up.
I agree with what everyone has said thus far, and the only additional piece I would add is just when we are trying to find truth, again, just bringing in the humility and trying to see where people are coming from, and agree with like the meeting of the minds. But sorry, that is not articulated the best. But again, thank you for coming and allowing us all to be so interactive with you. And this was a great evening with you.
Well, look, I hope, thank you for helping me get a sense of who you are as I build what I'm going to do in person. And that's really where I do my best work. So I'm hoping you can all come, because the question for all of us in leadership, and I know that I know the adults on the Zoom are leaders already. And some of you may be in student leadership, but I can tell by your goals, your aspirations, your intentions, your clarity. I'm sure that all of you are going to be in a leadership position. And I've been in a variety of leadership positions in my life. And this is the one thing that is standing in front of me that I think is essential, as simple as it might sound, as Sunday schoolish as it might sound, is it will be very important to try to create communities, whether small or large, of goodwill in order to be productive in such a fractured time. So I thank you for your participation. Ava, when is my day that I come in real life, so to speak?
Your in-person date will be March 28th at 4 p.m. We're so excited to have you back
And
in
where
your
is
career.
it? Is it going to be in a kind of a theater place, or where is it going to be my in-person?
That's the goal. We haven't formally set the location yet. That'll be out and promoted to everyone once it is finalized.
But we hope it's like a big rehearsal hall kind of space, right?
Yes.
Not because, as you can see, I want to be in conversation. That's really what I do. If anybody's looked at my work, that's what it is. And so I need to see you and be with you. And somebody said something about food, Ava. We might want to think about that too.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much. So as we mentioned again, March 28th will be the next event with Anna, and then we'll have a career conversation. If you're looking to hear more about Anna's career path, will be April 14th, also at 4 p.m. Thank you all so much for attending today. It's been a pleasure to have you all.
Thank you for your truths.